You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. Today we're discussing the latest episode of the 15th Doctor called Lux, or Lux, depending on how they're pronouncing it on the show. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom, and I'm sorry, but Father Chip is trapped in E-Space and having to take the long way home.
That's right. Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook, where we are at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. You can retweet us on X, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments wherever you find us on social media. We're on almost every social media network, so find us wherever that we are there, and we'd love to hear from you. All right, Jimmy, so let's get a recap of what happens in this episode.
This week, the Doctor starts using a device to try to help Belinda get home. They need to go several different places in time and take fixes on the date, May 24th, 2025, and then use those fixes to reel themselves in. Their first stop is in Miami, Florida in 1952, where 3 months ago a cartoon came to life in a movie theater and 15 people mysteriously vanished. But the projectionist still plays movies to the empty theater. The Doctor and Belinda discover that the cartoon, known as Mr. Ring-a-Ding, is actually Lux Imperator, the Chaos God of Light, and he uses the magic of movies to reunite the projectionist with his deceased wife, which is why he's been playing movies to the empty theater. Lux is also bound by the rules of the games that the gods play to tell the Doctor certain things, like how to defeat him, and he says that the answer is the one thing he never does. And he says that if he is defeated, the 15 missing people could return. Lux also throws plot complications in the way of the Doctor, and he and Belinda end up in a cartoon themselves and must claw their way back to the real world. On the way, there are several fake-out stops where they think they're in the real world but aren't. One of these is visiting a group of fans of the TV show Doctor Who. The fans give the Doctor and Belinda a clue by pointing out how flammable film stock is. They also reveal that they're not real and will cease to exist as soon as the two move on. When the Doctor and Belinda finally get out of the film, Lux traps the Doctor and uses his Time Lord energy to start building himself a real body, because the one thing he never does is go outside, because he's only made out of light. But with a real body, he can go outside and bring chaos to the world. As the body is being built, the Doctor reminds Belinda what the fans told them and says that he knows what time it is. In fact, it's daytime. Belinda goes to the projectionist film closet and throws all the reels on the floor. The projectionist then sacrifices himself by lighting them on fire, causing a big explosion that blows a hole in the theater. This exposes Lux to the light of the sun, which causes him to start growing and keep growing until he apparently merges with all the light in the universe, becoming everything and nothing. Could we be a little more vague? Afterwards, the 15 missing people are returned, and when the Doctor and Belinda take off, Mrs. Flood appears and recommends the TV program Doctor Who to them, but she says it will have a limited run and will end on May 24th. As the credits roll, the fans are nitpicking the episode and are then shocked and overjoyed to realize they still exist. The end.
We're real. So your overall impression of this one, Jimmy?
I liked it. I thought it was fun. It's got a really weird premise, but Doctor Who does science fairy tale, and that's essentially what this is. I didn't have any problem with the concept. There are individual. I thought it was a really fun episode. I liked it. I liked having the Doctor Who fans in it. You know, there are multiple things I liked about it. There are also things I didn't like about it, but on balance, I thought it was a good episode.
I agree. I like Belinda kind of leaning a little more into the companion thing now. She was so opposed to being on the adventure, and they naturally eased her into the adventure. Yeah. So I like that.
She's a little schizophrenic about, am I a companion or do I want to go home? But that's not in principle a problem. People can have different moods. Yes.
I liked it. The design was nice. I liked how it all looked. I thought it was an original concept. And I have to say that my wife, Melanie, as soon as Mr. Ring-a-Ding started coming out of the screen, she's like, oh, it's the toy maker. Like she called it before, long before I did. So I got to give her credit for that.
I figured that, although it also reminds me of The Purple Rose of Cairo, which is for people who may not have seen it, it's a Woody Allen movie set back in the classic, 1930s Depression film era, when people went to the movies all the time because they didn't have TV, among other things. Yeah. And so in The Purple Rose of Cairo, there's this woman who goes to the movies every day, and she'll see the same film playing over and over again. And one day the romantic lead in the film looks out of the screen and takes notice of her. And then he steps out of the screen, and this leads to plot complications played for comedy. And it's a really nice film.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically the concept here is let's break the fourth wall over and over again in many different ways. And, we do that diegetically, and then we just go nuts with it, with the ultimate fourth wall breaking. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So 1952, we do get a definite date and place, Miami, Florida. And Mr. Ring-a-Ding looks a lot like a Betty Boop character. Like, it was kind of that style. They kind of lean into it and pointed out, like, what are you? I think Belinda asked. Like, you got like a pink nose and your skin's weird blue. I mean,
and you're a man, and you got a pig nose and you're blue. And and he's like other characters like the Animaniacs, which are clearly humanoid, but also animalistic, but they're not any one single animal.
Right. So yeah, that was interesting. So we get this moonshine that reflects into the projection booth, and then gets into the projection, light, and it causes this change.
And it behaves completely unlike normal natural light, because it's like a ray of light from the moon that reflects off a spoon, that reflects off several posters, that bounces into the projector, and then gets into the light on the movie screen, and that's what brings Mr. Ring-a-Ding to life. Yeah.
So, and then we have that scene of him crawling out of. We saw in the trailers a giant version of him crawling out of the screen. Later on, he ends up being smaller, but
he ends up being just 2 feet tall.
Yeah. Then we cut to the Doctor and Belinda in the TARDIS. And we're picking up almost right from where we left off last episode. The Doctor bouncing off of May 24th, 2025, and trying to come up with a solution. And we have this interesting repartee, this dialogue between them. And it's very refreshing that Belinda likes and is impressed by her parents. She likes her parents. Her mom's a violinist, and her dad is a accountant or something. Yeah, something like that, who likes to sing, but like, she likes her family. That's refreshing. That's different.
It is. It's different than a lot of the parental relationships we've had on Doctor Who in the past.
Yeah.
So that's a nice choice. I also like how she knows the Doctor's a Time Lord, and at one point she asks him, why don't, if you can't get us here, if the ship's not working, why don't you just take us to the planet Time Lordia? I mean, I'm sure they have garages. And the Doctor says, "Oh, I so wish it was called that." And he says, "But not right now, they don't." And he later tells her that it's a wasteland currently, which is like, dude, time machine.
Go back to when there wasn't a wasteland.
There's
some. I think they've kind of alluded to the fact that there's something weird about Gallifrey where you can't really go back in time on Gallifrey. Like, you can't go back.
Never said that, but They could. I don't recall them alluding to it, but they could establish that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They could say Gallifrey has special time buffers to keep things in the right order, and you can't go backwards on Gallifrey.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I had the sense of the notion that they said something like that. Anyway, they land in 1952, and we have this, like, again, another natural reaction. Like, it feels like they're kind of introducing Doctor Who to a new audience, and so there's the whole question of Belinda's there in her night clothes, she's still in her pajamas essentially, and she's like, "Can I go out there like this?" And he says, "Oh, this is the fun part," and they go running off to the TARDIS closet.
Yeah. Okay. So since you've raised it, there is some content in this. They keep it pretty minor this episode, but there is some gay content in this.
Yeah.
When the Doctor in this opening scene, when the Doctor and Belinda are talking, he says, "So tell me about yourself. Got a girlfriend, boyfriend, other friend?" And they front load girlfriend there.
Yep.
Then when she raises the point that she's still in her pajamas, he says, "Oh, honey, this is the fun bit, the clothes." And he says it in this gay inflection that I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And then when they come out, they see that the film, and they see the movie theater, the movie on the marquee, it says Rock Hudson, The Harvest Bringer, which is not a real movie. I looked it up. But that leads to a conversation about Rock Hudson and how he ended up getting AIDS and things like that. And it's like, okay, here's more of this. And then the Doctor says, or Belinda says to the Doctor, because he wants to go in and investigate instead of, now that they've taken their time fix, they could just leave. But he wants to investigate, and she says, "You're Scooby-Doo." And the Doctor says, "Honey, I'm Velma." Yeah. And that's about it. But that's like 4 little bits of gay stuff right at the beginning of the episode. And so that is there. It's annoying, but it does not ruin the whole episode for me.
Russell T Davies does not want us to forget.
Yeah.
You know, like every episode has to bring these things up. Yeah, I mean, didn't have to be Rock Hudson. Could have been any actor in a fake movie called The Harvest Bringer. But, you know, so it's clearly intentional to do that sort of thing. So, yeah, I didn't love that. I mean, it's funny how the TARDIS, they go running into the back room to roll over Beethoven. They come running out dressed in 50s clothes, and she's got her hair done in like a 50s hairdo. Like, I want to imagine there's a machine back there where like they just stick her head in it and it makes her hair like all done up. You know, sure, why not? So they come out, and, you know, the other thing that they bring up too several times, not overly done like we've seen in the 13th Doctor time, but they do bring up segregation a couple times.
And I thought they handled it very nicely in this. I mean, given they need to address it at some point, because the Doctor is a different race now. And so how are people going to react to this race? Just like I didn't mind when we had Jodie Whittaker, that I didn't mind them addressing that the Doctor's a woman now. How are people going to react to that? That's different than how they've always reacted to the Doctor. My criticism was not that they addressed it on the show. My criticism was the way they addressed it, because I've had an upgrade, and it's like, okay, there are better ways of handling this. And similarly, and that's also something I think they would have done better for the first woman Doctor if she had been more aristocratic. And commanded respect in that way, despite the fact that she's a woman. If she is very aristocratic, you know, in a British cultural context, she can sort of command respect just by the way she talks and the way she moves and stuff, as opposed to this dopey, friendly woman character, who was pleasant, but most of the time, but who didn't command respect in the same way. Yeah. Well, so I don't mind them addressing the issue of racism here. And I thought they did it nicely, because they took us to a place where segregation was real, and the Doctor does not make it the center of the episode. This is not the episode Rosa, right? Which was stupid and had that ridiculous racist from the 50th century or whatever. It's like, I'm sorry, humans are, by that point in the future, are interacting with multiple different species. No one is going to care what your skin color is. Right. You can probably change it 5 times a day if you want. Right. So I thought that was just a stupid ham-fisted episode. Here, it is handled, the same issue is handled with much more finesse. The Doctor and Belinda are in a diner, when the doctor is explaining this to her. And he says, because they want to talk to this woman who's in the diner, who is the mother of one of the people that vanished in the theater. And by the way, everyone here has shaky American accents, especially the diner worker. But she, he points the woman out to the diner worker, points the woman out to them, and she says, "I don't have a problem talking to him if we can bend the rules." And that's when the penny drops for, oh yeah, segregation. And the doctor tells Belinda, at this point in time, it's not legal for black people to be in here, and that includes you, which he has to tell her because she's got an Indian background. Mm-hmm. And she's immediately, has this negative reaction, and the doctor handles it really well. He does what a time traveler who's used to going to different times and wants to go to different times where they're going to encounter things like this needs to do. You can't make a huge stink about it every time. That's going to derail what you're here for. So he just says, save it for later, Belinda. Right now, we're busy. And when she queries him a little bit about it, he says, I have toppled worlds. Sometimes I wait for people to topple the world. Until then, I live in it and shine. Mm. And it's like, I so approve of that. It's like, do not let others limit you in that way. And do not throw a tantrum because other people are being jerks. Just rise above it and do good in the world. And it's like, okay, I want to give Russell T. Davies credit for this, because he's terrible at handling sexual issues. But on the race issue, he got it right. This is the way a time traveler would need, who whatever color the time traveler is, they're going to walk into situations where people are going to, be prejudiced against them. And you can't always be in a snit and I'm going to topple your world. It's like, sometimes you got to roll with it and just rise above it and be a better person than the people who are prejudiced against you.
What was that episode last season where they were on the planet where everyone was in social media and we had the people who were prejudiced against the doctor?
Dot and Bubble, right.
And I think at the time we agreed that one was a little heavy-handed in the way they dealt with it.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. I think it was meant to be racial. It wasn't clear to me, though. It could have been classist, that the doctor wasn't from the right social class. But I thought that that was not handled as well as this one.
Right. This one was, I agree with everything you said on how they handle that. So in the diner, they, like you mentioned, they met Mrs. Lowenstein, who is, her son, Tommy Lee, was one of the disappeared. And
she is not prejudiced at all. Not only is she willing to talk with him, she holds hands with the doctor.
Which makes a later scene stand out and is really good because of that. So I will mention that in a second. But, she talks about her son and how she comes every night and she says, I'll wait for that boy forever. And she talks about how the doctor has given her hope because she sees the police have given up. But she saw the TARDIS, which is a police box, and so now it gives her hope. And he says, and he asked her, does the TARDIS give you hope? Hope can change the world. And I really, I like that, especially I was watching this on Easter because, hope can change the world. It has changed the world. Hope, Christ is our hope. And I like that message. I like if that we're presenting the doctor as someone who brings hope in the midst of whatever suffering the people are going through in the adventures he goes through. So I like that.
If you were watching this on Easter, then I'm sure you noticed the reference that Mr. Ringading has to the greatest story ever told, which for people who may not be familiar is a 1965 film about the life of Jesus Christ.
Yes, right. That was so anachronistic by mentioning it because a little bit out of time.
He's a god, so he can know what movies are coming out in 13 years.
Right, exactly. So what was the other thing? So the theater is kind of funny, a little continuity error maybe, or error. The theater is chained up from the outside. They have chains on all the doors, which is what makes the doctor notice it. But Mr. Pie is living inside. How's the guy get in and out? Get food?
I don't know. maybe there's a
outside.
maybe they just chained up the front doors and there's a back entrance for the staff or something.
Yeah, well, they went to the side door and that was chained too. But yeah, I know it's just you gotta come up with a headcanon.
I do like though that as the Doctor is trying to intrigue Belinda into staying and investigating, after they learn about the theater and they learn about Mr. Pie in there, it's like there is an old caretaker in a haunted theater.
That's definitely a Scooby-Doo moment.
Yeah.
So
also we get more, kind of pushback from Belinda. Like at one point when she's trying to explain who she and the Doctor are, she says, or maybe he's explaining who they are, but he says like, this is Belinda and I'm the Doctor. And she says, or something to that effect. That's the information that's communicated.
Yeah,
and
it comes from her, but yeah.
Yeah, and she turns to the Doctor and says, really, just the Doctor always? And he's like, yeah. And she says, ridiculous.
Again, I feel it feels like a new viewers sort of thing. Yeah, I like that. All right, so we have the big reveal when the Doctor realizes who Mr. Ringading really is,
which is a little problematic. So Mr. Ringading has been on. He comes out of the curtains of the movie theater, and he starts singing his introduction song. He has a song about who he is. And he says, "Don't make me laugh," and just get my autograph. And he sings this little song, and the Doctor at one point says, "Cut," and Mr. Ringading freezes. And the Doctor says, "Who did I just say cut to?" So there's a clue. There may be something more going on here. They may pick up on that in a later episode. There's some similar thing the Doctor said in a previous episode that also kind of sort of, it's not exactly breaking the fourth wall, but it's an unexplained mystery related to film and television production.
Right.
But then, and Mr. Ringading has been saying, "Don't make me laugh," over and over again. And he eventually does. He says, because it sounds a lot like this. And then he does the laugh from the giggle.
Yeah.
And at that moment, a bunch of the letters on the movie marquee fall off. And instead of Harvest Bringer, it now says Harbinger. And the Doctor immediately realizes we're dealing with one of the Chaos Gods. And I'm like, how did they see the marquee from in here? They're inside the theater at this point. How do they know what the marquee says?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's true. He does call himself Lux Imperator.
Right, which would mean Emperor Light.
Yeah, and it's, what was I going to say? Is he the Harbinger?
I know. This is the problem. Mr. Ringading seems to be the Harbinger of a god, but he also seems to be the god. And it's like, pick one, Russell. The Harbinger shouldn't be the same person that's being harbinged.
So the Maestro had a Harbinger.
Yep, who was a little boy.
And the god of death,
Sutek, had a Harbinger. I interpreted Mrs. Susan Triad as the Harbinger of Sutek.
Oh, okay. Because I remember the toy maker saying he's coming, that sort of thing. So, interesting. Yeah, that was confusing. Like who is the Harbinger we're talking about in this?
Yeah,
that is weird.
It's a dramatic moment. Now, what they may have meant is that it was the giggle that cued the Doctor in, and he didn't see anything. But then, what's the Harbinger? Well, I mean, it's a dramatic moment. I like that they included it, but I need another character here to be the Harbinger for things to fully make sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that part was a bit confusing. And I keep seeing references to the Pantheon of Discord, but it's not mentioned in the show itself, but online that the Toymaker, Maestro, and now Lux Imperador and Sutek were all part of this Pantheon of Discord. Do you know where we get that term from?
No, it's not been in the show. And so here he calls them, it may be a fan thing. It may be a production staff thing. But here the Doctor refers to them as gods of chaos.
Okay. Yeah.
And we may get some more. I'm sure we're going to get some more gods, but like among them, maybe the gods of Ragnarok, who the Seventh Doctor faced. They would fit nicely into this pantheon.
Yeah. I was just going to look at the future titles and see if that gives us because I wonder, is everything this season going to be around this? Now that we've got the companion.
I don't think it's every episode, but we will have more gods this season, including a spider god that's coming up in a few episodes.
Oh, joy. My favorite. Spiders. Why does it have to be spiders? Mr. Pie saves them in the immediate in the short term.
And it's so clever how he does it.
Yeah.
It turns out that if Mr. Ring-a-Ding's song is playing on the screen, he has to sing along with it and act it out. He has to do the same motions. So Mr. Pie's solution to let the Doctor and Belinda escape from Lux is to start playing the original Mr. Ring-a-Ding cartoon. And he starts singing, "I'm Mr. Ring-a-Ding," and that forces Lux for like 90 seconds, which is a really long time for a song in a cartoon, to sing along, and he can't do anything else while that's happening, and that lets the Doctor and Belinda escape.
Right, and that is. It shows that there are rules. Like he's not literally an omnipotent god in that sense. There are rules that bind these guys that they have to abide by. So even though they're gods of chaos, they are not completely chaotic.
They're finite gods. Yeah. They're like the Greek gods like Zeus and stuff like that.
Right. And we find out at this point that Pi is cooperating with Ring-a-Ding because he gave him a film of his deceased wife, who then comes alive when he plays the film.
Yeah, and he gets to be reunited with his wife. And he says, it's a nice moment. He says, "Don't tell me she's not real," because he is, meaning Lux.
Right. And we get a sense that later on that maybe she is real in some way. She
encourages Mr. Pie to actively defeat Lux. So she's not just a creature that's doing Lux's bidding.
Kind of like the fans. Doctor Who fans. Yeah. It's interesting. So this is the point where we really go wild and
through the looking glass.
Really. And so he makes the Doctor and Belinda two-dimensional in a cartoon world, and they start to realize that when they get character depth, like so when Belinda gets sad, they start to get three-dimensional depth, literal depth.
Aspects of it. Yeah.
Yes.
And eventually, now I wish we'd stayed in the cartoon world for a little bit longer. I felt a little unsatisfied that they figured that out so quickly, but it's a nice metaphor that as the Doctor realizes when Belinda is sad, she starts to become more three-dimensional. So he starts confessing things he's sad about. He starts to become more three-dimensional too. And within a minute or so, they're fully three-dimensional. Right.
There's a lot of meta writing going on here because like the idea of we need characters who are not flat, they need to have dimensionality. They need to have depth to their character from an emotional and psychological standpoint.
In fact, there's a moment where Belinda is talking to Lux and she's asking about him and he says, "I'm a two-dimensional character. I don't have backstory."
Right. Exactly. And so that now they're trapped in this world of white in the frame, and they start kind of trying to make the frame go faster to get the film that they're on off track. And then the Doctor realizes you can't do that by rolling it vertically. So we have to.
I could have told him that. That's what it does naturally.
Exactly. I thought he was going to go side to side, but instead he says we have to break the fourth wall. And so they approach the screen, and it's fun, especially if you're watching on a big TV. It really feels like they're coming right up to the inside of your TV screen, and then they push it out, and they climb out of a LCD TV in some 2025 living room.
First though, they come out. They think when their first fake out emergence,
right, the first one
is they come out into the movie theater. And at this point, the mother, his name is Tommy Lee, is one of the boys who vanished, and his mom is there with a police officer, and her attitude is completely wrong. Yes. She is hostile and suspicious towards the doctor and talking about how he's somehow responsible for all this, and he's very suspicious, and the police officer is being irate, and
they're at a segregated theater.
Yeah, and the doctor very quickly realizes, as does the viewer, this is not the real world, because the real, whatever her name was,
Mrs. Lowenstein. Yeah.
Mrs. Lowenstein, the real Mrs. Lowenstein was super appreciative of the doctor. There's no way she'd have this attitude reversal. This makes no sense. And the doctor has a great line. He says, "Your continuity is terrible. This is Miami. This is Miami-Dade County, and that uniform is New York PD."
that was nice.
Yeah.
Because it's often those little details get overlooked by people making shows that, when they're not paying attention to the details. And so you could chalk it up to, there's the BBC kind of not getting the details wrong on an American. Nope. They knew exactly what they were doing. And that was nicely done. So they go back in, as you mentioned, and they come out into this living room of the fans. And these are really good fans.
Because this was a great scene.
As a fan, it was fun. I mean, this is, we like Doctor Who for many different things. And for me, one of the things I like is when it's fun. And this was super fun. And this idea of you have the super fans who just love the show. And then you have that one fan who I pay attention to the online rumors. And that was lame.
Yeah, that was. Well, she wasn't. I didn't get her as being that hostile, but I mean, I thought hostile. they were all fans, and they were so impressed to get to meet the Doctor and Belinda. And they initially say, you're fictional characters, and now you're in the real world, and we watch you. And I forget what it was, but they're mentioning something that happens on the show, and one of the fans says, unexpectedly but brilliantly, it leaked online. That's how I knew about it. Hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
That's what I was thinking. Like she's critical. She's not hostile per se, but she's critical.
And that there's a lot of meta stuff happening here where. This season reminds me, and it's been speculated that some of this is intentional. But when the show was on the chopping block in Colin Baker's time, they did that Trial of a Time Lord series, which was a sort of metatextual season where, they knew the BBC was considering canceling the show. And so the Doctor was both diegetically and non-diegetically on trial during that season. And they're in a similar situation now, and where, ratings have not been good and fan reaction has not been good. And even Russell T Davies has acknowledged we may not get picked up after this season. And so as part of the fan hostility, we've got the hashtag RIP Doctor Who reference in here. And, Mrs. Flood, as I mentioned in the summary, is building up to, limited run only. It's going to end May 24th, when really there's another week after that.
Yep.
But it looks like they may be doing something conceptually similar to Trial of a Time Lord here, where the show is again on trial for its survival.
Although, I feel like they started production on season 2 before season 1 aired.
They did, but they've rejiggered it. They've apparently, so spoiler, sweetie, they've apparently got 2 endings. One of which because they've got a minimum of a year now, since they haven't had a go order on season 3, it's going to be offline for at least a year. Because of filming requirements. And it's not clear that Ncuti Gatwa wants to wait around There are press reports indicating that he wants to move to Los Angeles and work on film projects there as the next step up in his career, which is exactly what Matt Smith did.
Yeah.
And so apparently they've filmed a second ending to this season where Ncuti Gatwa regenerates, and it's an open-ended regeneration where because they don't know if they're getting picked up, they don't know if Ncuti's going to stay, and they don't know who the next Doctor would be correspondingly. Right. So it's like an open-ended regeneration apparently where he's not coming back, but we don't know who the next guy is yet.
Right, which was essentially what we had with the fifth Doctor or the sixth Doctor. No, the sixth Doctor we didn't see the regeneration, but the fifth Doctor, I think.
So Colin Baker was the sixth Doctor.
Yeah,
he didn't have a regeneration story when they offered Colin Baker one, but he didn't. He wanted to come back for more than a single story.
Yeah,
and so they just had him regenerating unexpectedly in the middle of a battle to become Sylvester McCoy. What it's more similar to is the 13th Doctor's regeneration, where at the end of Jodie Whittaker's run, it was not known if the show was going to continue. And so when Jodie Whittaker is getting ready to regenerate and she says, whoever comes next, tag, you're it. That was done with Chris Chibnall, the showrunner at the time, not knowing if the show was going to get picked up. And then it did get picked up, and Russell T Davies brought back David Tennant as the 14th Doctor.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's the similarity. So the other thing with the fans, the fans was when he kept asking, what's your favorite episode?
That was brilliant. Which one of my stories is your favorite? And they instantly, all of them say Blink. And he starts giving him pushback, and he's like, not the one with the goblins, not the one with the Beatles, not the one where I literally stepped on a landmine. And it's like, no, Blink. They're all just insistent it's Blink.
What happens in Blink? So the whole time you can't blink. Very poorly explained.
Yeah,
and she's like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, Belinda says, "Oh, that sounds like a real epic."
So yeah, that was really good. And of course, as they do reveal the solution, which is interesting. Again, they're acting independently of Mr. Ring-a-Ding.
Well, or at least they're part of his plan, and he has to give the Doctor certain information. So this could be his way of doing it through these characters. They reveal that we're not. It turns out we're not real. Belinda, and the Doctor are real. We're part of Mr. Ring-a-Ding's or Lux's trap, but they mention that that film stock is very flammable, and old nitrile film stock is really it can cause explosions. In fact, as soon as I saw that film cupboard in the projectionist booth, and I see all those reels of film right towards the beginning of the episode, I'm like, I hope nobody's smoking in this room, because that stuff could totally go off.
Yeah,
and then it later does. Okay. And
that was one of my questions later. Yeah, is it really that explosive? But I guess it is.
It is. Yeah, it can explode. It will definitely burn, and it can explode.
Okay, and of course we have to have every episode. Ncuti Gatwa has to cry as the Doctor.
Here it was subtle enough, because when the fans reveal that they're not real and they're gonna cease to exist once they move on. Once the Doctor and Belinda move on, the Doctor tears up apparently, but it was subtle enough this time that I and other people missed it. So at least it wasn't as blatant as it has been. But still, dudes, every single episode, stop it now.
Well, and we'll do it in the next episode too, because they put it in the trailer for the next episode. So it's like,
so the Doctor who cries every episode is not a good character trait.
No.
And I like how because once the Doctor has been told that we're going to cease to exist, which Belinda says, "Oh, you're going to die," and they're like, "It's not death, we just end." But still, that's such a horrific thought that how do the Doctor and Belinda move on at that point? And so if you're talking to these apparently sentient individuals who tell you they're effectively going to die as soon as you walk out of the room, how do you walk out of the room? And so one of the fans takes the initiative, reaches up to the top of the frame, and yanks down the white screen. So the Doctor and Belinda are spared having to make that decision.
Right. Yeah. It was such a great scene. That's one of my top scenes of A New Who.
We also have some nice meta stuff here where we've got, like, we're 30 minutes into the episode, and so the fans make a comment about, okay, it's time for Act 3. You need to go back and defeat the villain.
Right.
And then we have a clunker line from Belinda where she says, once she and the Doctor are out of the room, she says, we have to go back and fight that thing because maybe your life isn't so mad after all. And I'm going, what does that even mean? And it's certainly not appropriate. It's like, Belinda, you are literally standing in a white film void. His life is totally mad based on the data you have at your disposal.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Russell T. Davies wrote this one. I think he's trying to imply that she's coming around, like, I'm on board with your overall mission.
But that's a bad line.
It's a bad line. It is a bad line. Yeah.
Then the way they finally get out is they decide to stop the film by hanging on to and preventing the frames from advancing. So they hang on to the frame, and that causes the film to burn from the light of the projector and then disintegrate and tear, and that pops them out of it.
Right. And the Doctor gets his hand burned, which he then heals with the remnants of the bi-generation energy.
Yeah.
And that is actually not just a throwaway, because that's the energy that Lux wants to use to make his own real body. And we have the scene of the projectors sending out film stock to grab the Doctor and hold him in front of the projection so that it shines through him and starts creating this horrific, semi-real, weird body for. And
we get to see both of his hearts as the light is shining through him and stuff. And it's at this point that the Doctor reminds Belinda of what the fan said, and then says, and I know what time it is, meaning it's daytime out there.
Yes.
So because Lux is made out of light, he has no physical form to take with him into the material world. And even if he did go outside, he would need to do so at night to keep his own light from being overwhelmed by the light of the sun, which is why it's so hard to play movies. If if you project a movie on the side of a building outdoors during the daytime, you're not going to see very much.
Right.
And so they're relying on that effect here. By the way, I don't really like or fully like I understand they're trying to make the more physicalized version of Lux creepy, but I'm not a fan of the way they did it. He becomes this 3D animation that I think looks just icky, not creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a particular animation style that's weird. In any case, Belinda's trying to light the film stock on fire, that cupboard. She doesn't have anything to light it with. She goes to Reggie. She's trying to get him to give her the matches, and he doesn't want to give up his wife. He knows that if it all goes up, he loses what he has left of her. And so
she appears to him in a vision and gives him a box of matches and says, "Find me." Yes.
So that's an interesting what that might mean. That's kind of an interesting question. In the afterlife, maybe.
Yeah.
And then so it explodes, blasts a hole in the side of the theater. It shines on Lux, and Lux, he doesn't do he doesn't do the wicked witch to the west, like, oh, I'm melting. He grows. The sunlight, it basically overloads him to the fact that where he expands into the heavens and becomes so vast that he becomes like nothing.
Yeah, he says the light of creation, I'm everything and I'm nothing, goodbye.
And says he became light without end.
Yeah. Belinda says so he did become a god. He's infinite and invisible and intangible. And the doctor says, amen. Which, I can nitpick all that, but it's
don't
a
expect
fiction.
them to be.
Don't expect Russell T Davies to be fully theologically accurate, but he's trying. I also like the doctor's point that, when Belinda comments on Lux merging with the light and losing his abilities to affect things, the doctor says we're 60% water and we can still drown.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Russell T Davies in theological accuracy, he does make another faith-related point, which is when Tommy Lee comes out and Mrs. Lowenstein embraces her returned son. I had faith and you came back. I'm like, earlier it was about hope, and she had hope and she had faith and he came back and he returned to her. And not everyone who loses someone will have them return through faith and hope necessarily, but just, I like that closing that story for her and making that loop for her. That was really nice.
There's also a bit of a clunker line here where, so after the 15, including Tommy Lee, have returned, the doctor and Belinda are standing out in front of the theater, and the doctor says, according to the laws of the land, babe, sunlight doesn't suit us, which is his exit line to get them out of there. And it's like, no, under segregation, you weren't allowed in the theater, but you can stand on a public street. And it doesn't matter whether it's day or night. Yeah. So that was just kind of a clunker line, but I guess they needed some way to get the doctor and Belinda to move on, because now it's time for Mrs. Flood to show up.
That's right.
And
so interesting, she kind of says to people, oh, if you like movies, check this out. She points them to the TARDIS as it's fading out.
If you want a good show to watch.
Yeah. And Tommy Lee makes a remark about CG, special effects, not CGI. They didn't have that.
They didn't have
special
that.
Effects. And and then she says limited run ends May 24th. And as you pointed out, the series doesn't end on May 24th. There is one more episode after that, which is an interesting idea. And so we're continuing. I wonder, you mentioned who the doctor says earlier, who did I say cut to? I'm wondering, we've had lots of theories who Mrs. Flood is, and we'll continue, I guess. But, is she maybe the person who's controlling all this? That she's the one who, can cause the cut?
I think she's likely the penultimate bad for this season. So I think she is involved in why Belinda can't go home.
But not the ultimate bad?
Nope, I don't think she's the ultimate bad. I've got some spoilers that indicate there's something else coming.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, we won't do the spoilers in the show. I'll ask you at some other point. But we have her again time traveling, with the doctor. She's there at all of these key moments, and that's basically what she does. There's nothing really else for her to do there. Then we get the credits start. And as the credits start, we have them kind of pull back, and we see the fans watching the end of the show and kind of enthusing about it, and then realizing they still exist, which is interesting.
Which is nice.
It's a nice little...
It's not explained where or how they exist, but it's nice that they do.
Yeah. And I don't think we're necessarily supposed to take anything from it, from the bigger picture. I think it's just...
it's an acknowledgement nice the fans are real, and it's a nice thing for these characters.
Right. Any other notes on this one, Jimmy?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. A couple just animation related thing. Some of the animators working on Mr. Ring-a-Ding also worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yep.
Which was another cartoons in the real world sort of thing that they did many years ago, which was groundbreaking for the time. So they did such a good job. So that was kind of fun.
And by the way, if folks liked this episode and you want to see something that's conceptually similar, do check out The Purple Rose of Cairo. It's a good movie. I like it. It has it explores some very interesting and human themes, and it's funny and bittersweet.
All right, so that'll do it for today. Before we go, we do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who are very real, and we do appreciate for them making it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Robert B., Jeffrey B., Anthony.
Go ahead, do the patron thanks. I just remembered something I wanted to mention. Go ahead.
Okay. Robert B., Jeffrey B., Anthony Z., Michael B., and Kyle M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right, mid-credit scene. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to mention that they're actually very close to when segregation ends in the United States. Because they're in 1952, and it was the 1950s, the civil rights movement happened, and segregation ended up falling. So they're actually on the verge of that happening. And so there was already considerable support, including in the South, for ending segregation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you missed the stuff, folks, if you leave too early. So you are the ones who get to see the good stuff all the way through to the end. So that's it from us. What did you think of Lux? You can let us know by commenting on the show.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page. Send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. That's not the pantheon of Discord. It's our Discord. You can watch The Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I was just waiting for you to
okay.
Whatever it is you do, thank me or whatever.
All right. Well, we will be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Doctor Who, The Well. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Dom. And this was a good episode, but I'm still going to mark it down to 7 out of 10. They gave away the ending in the middle. The villain's motivation changed, and it's puppets who want to be boys, not cartoons.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, don't make me laugh.